Well, what an inspirational speech there, Megan. Thank you very much. So welcome to the panel on pivoting our career to AI. So let's start off with, I'm not going to introduce these guys, you guys can do it yourselves. Introduce yourselves, your title, company, and then one fun fact about how you ended up in AI.
Well, I guess I'm starting. Hello, I'm Jeff Watkins. I'm the CTO for a consultancy called Great Future. Thank you very much for that talk. It was brilliant. I think you have a big future in public speaking. I ended up getting into AI because, like a lot of people, I mean, I'd studied a little bit at university because I'm from an engineering background, and then when ChatGPT came out, we built a demo for, I'm sure, hopefully most of you have heard of Martin Lewis. We built his app. And then he saw the demo, and the demo was so convincing, he went, can we have it in live in 2 weeks? And then Q was sweating bullets like, how do we now make this safe and sane to go out to hundreds of thousands of users? So it took 6 weeks in the end, but we did do it, and it is live. And if you've got the MSE app, you can use it.
Hi, I'm Cien. I'm the CEO and co-founder of LaunchLemonade. I also have a consultancy firm called Scale That Thing. What was the prompt again? Like, you need me to...
A fun fact of how you ended up in AI.
Fun fact. When I was a basketball player for 10 years, and my coach called me Eager Beaver. Like, I was always like, I want to get there. I want to block that ball, or I want to shoot that ball. It was the same with my roles in product delivery. So I was a product manager for a good proportion of my career. And I would just always volunteer for, like, the biggest projects. Like, I can do that. So we integrated a chatbot in 2018. I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take that project. And then we built a decisioning team where we built loads of models around fraud and identity. I was like, I'm going to take that team. So it was just because of my personality of, like, wanting the biggest projects, being eager, and then being annoying as well, and learning from, like, the data scientists in the team and data engineers in the team. And that's how I ended up in AI.
Fantastic. Nathan.
Hi, I'm Nathan Coulson. I'm CTO of a sustainability games company called Bowl Donut. And a quick story about how I got into AI. So about kind of more than 10 years ago, when I was figuring out what I wanted to do, I was very interested in social enterprise and social impact businesses. And the first thing I tried with some friends was start a fashion brand, which was a big mistake because I don't know anything about fashion. But the key learning I got from that was the importance, or the power of digital technology in general, and AI in particular, to scale. So what we did, teaching young people about kind of graphic design and selling things on market stands was great, but doesn't scale at all. So that's kind of what led me to a career in technology.
Fantastic, thank you. So our first topic today is getting started with AI. So Cien, let's start with you. What would be the top 2 things you would recommend for someone with no formal background in AI to start in AI?
I would, depending on your interest, try out a tool that's already built. If you have tried it out, the next step is build your own thing. So what I mean by that, if you're interested in music, use Udio. It's free to generate music, for example. Or if you're interested in film, use Runway and use some free credits or something, Like, find some, like, identify a curiosity and start exploring what's available. And once you've started exploring what's available, it's so easy to build your own solutions now. Start building your own solutions.
Great. Jeff, Nathan, anything to add?
Well, tautologically, come to things like this. I'd say, I said this to Hannah earlier, but I think some of the stuff that's been in the content of the talks today has actually probably outstripped what I've learned in the first few months of my AI master's degree I've done. It's actually been really good. It's been really, I think you've got to be passionate for it. It's, like with going into anything in tech, I think having a passion really, really helps. And there's never been more or better, and they're just going to keep getting better, materials for you to start learning. YouTube is a perfectly valid way of learning core machine learning and AI concepts nowadays. So you don't have to read, as much as AI I'm on the approach is the Bible of AI, it's this thick. And it's like saying to the person, oh, you're reading your first novel, how about War and Peace, is a little bit much. Maybe lead up to it. So I think using the online resources are available and just showing a real interest in it and sending things like this.
Yeah, totally agree with all those recommendations. I'd say maybe one thing to add that I think is quite useful is if you go onto sites like Kaggle, which is like a machine learning AI competition site, there's a big community that kind of share their code, their notebooks. And it's a really good way to see kind of what's the breakdown of the steps, what's the way of thinking, and get involved in a community trying to solve a problem and having a look at real data without having to go straight in. So yeah, I'd recommend that as maybe a step after those steps, but then yeah.
Great. Nathan, let's stick with you. So you have a background in social science. I have a background in finance, so non-techie backgrounds. So for people with non-technical fields, what skills and experience can those people bring into AI?
Yeah, I think those like people from non-technical backgrounds, say social sciences, humanities, I think they have a lot to bring because especially if you're kind of designing an application that's going to be used by people, you need to understand people, understand users, understand context, and there's a lot more to building a effective machine learning application or even building something kind of that maybe no one will ever see. You also need some awareness about society, you need some awareness about people and even behavioral science, for example. So I think depending on your background, there's always something that can be valuable to the process.
Great. Cien, have you got anything to add?
Yeah. The barrier to taking advantage of AI, whether you want to monetize, upskill, or just be cool, is null, in my opinion. Like, there's nothing stopping you from experimenting and solving, see if you could solve a problem with a solution that you can explore. Any skill, like no one started with an AI solution, an AI skill rather. Like no one started, especially from the pool of entrepreneurs right now who are leveraging AI and positioning themselves as AI entrepreneurs, including myself. I didn't have an AI background. I have a background in philosophy. I was a radio DJ at one point. I taught in China. I learned from experience and exploring curiosity, read so many books, and then took on the projects and learned from the people that surrounded me. There is no barrier for me from exploring AI solution or becoming an AI expert, because no one is. No one knows really how this thing is going to evolve. You can take part in influencing that.
Yeah, I think I want to sort of mirror both those. First of all, I think AI, unlike you could mention, say, blockchain or something like that, and another emerging tech that people are really excited about. They haven't formed effectively like a cultural revolution. So I think definitely the humanities are super important because this is going to affect the fabric of our society. I mean, as the World Economic Forum mentioned, will be something like 84 million jobs disappearing. 85, thank you. But over 90, is it 97 million, something like that, being created. So how do we help transpose those people into those jobs? So the humanities of all of and of course the scale as well of AI, the scale at which we can do things now, I think it's more important than ever we think about the cultural and societal aspects of it. And the other thing, to echo your comments there, you see the term prompt engineer, and some people might think, are they a special type of software engineer? No. In my organization, there are people from outside of, who've never really written a line of code. It's a different type of engineering. There were no experts, really, unless maybe you worked for OpenAI or something like that, until a couple of years ago. So I think the barrier for entry is your will, really, at the moment.
Oh, that's really great. And so we want to talk about the whole upskilling and reskilling in AI. Cien, you mentioned, the whole curiosity bit. What other skills would someone need to transition into an AI career?
The will. Don't be lazy. I personally, and I think it's easier for me to say because I have, I have the time. Like, I made sure that I have the time to learn. The difference between someone who is adapting quickly and versus the not is just the openness and the willingness to take time to learn about all things AI.
Nathan, you got something to add?
I'd say probably kind of developing good critical thinking skills. I think, probably like, just to take the example from your talk of prompt engineering, a lot of it is like kind of, trying something, looking at the result. It's like, well, that's not quite it, and not kind of accepting the first answer as given, So kind of being curious and having good critical thinking skills, I think, is a good start.
That's great. Jeff?
I think, I don't know if anybody was at Claudia's talk from Makers Academy just now. I think she put it probably better than I ever could have done. But I think, all of the above, really. You need to. I'm lucky because in being an engineer, our industry has always changed very, very quickly. But even then, in AI, I had to go back to the fact that, you have to be open and vulnerable and say, I didn't understand a lot about it. And the people building these new technologies that I couldn't come up with in a million years. So it really is. It's going in almost like blank slate and going, well, what can I learn? How can I grow? And keep that growth mindset. And understand that, unfortunately, the stuff we're talking about today and some of the stuff we've learned today, it'll still be relevant, but there'll be something new. There'll be something added to all. And that will never end, until we all retire.
Let's stick with you, Jeff. So we've talked about the great things we can achieve with AI. What would you say are the key barriers or challenges that people are experiencing to start experimenting with AI?
Well, I think up until recently, it was the technical barriers, and they have been, AI has been, I'd say, much more democratized recently. And I'd say for a lot of people now, it'll be overcoming the fear of failure or the lack of understanding. And I think all the materials are there, and the people, attending stuff like this, and there are people who you can reach out to and who can help you get over that initial barrier. Because if you've got an idea and you're willing to innovate, remember the invention is very different to innovation. Edison didn't invent the filament light bulb. He innovated with it and brought it to the masses. So likely, in myself included, none of us here are going to be inventing the next thing. But we can innovate with it and have to get over that hump of actually, you can use that, and you just got to get over the fear and start experimenting.
Cien?
What was the question again?
The key barriers or challenges for people to start with AI.
So I must have over 2,000 AI agents, assistants have been built on our platform in the past few months alone. And I've seen a lot, and I've spoken to a lot of builders in trying to understand what they're wanting to build and what's been stopping them, all these years from innovating. And it's always, a lot of them have been, or are rather, perfectionist. And because they're perfectionists, it's inhibited them from experimenting, and again, the fear of failure is not allowing them to actually see if they can validate with real people if their idea is good or not. So I think that's one barrier, being a perfectionist. Second is not understanding or not accepting that this technology is just at the cusp or the beginning of how it's developing. And because we put so much expectation to AI, so when I started the company in December and I did about market research, a lot of the ideal customer profile that I interviewed thought that AI was just chatbots. Oh, so I'm gonna have a chatbot on my computer. And then all of a sudden it became about agents. Oh my God, it's gonna do everything. It's gonna talk to my calendar and do my work for me and do everything for me, sell for me. So there was a big gap in their understanding there still is, between chatbot that can answer FAQs versus agent that can do everything. So because it doesn't meet and they're not satisfied, they're just giving up. So I think that's also the barrier, just the expectation of what it can do and what it can be.
And the whole tell me what to do, tell me what to put into it, that kind of thing. What about you, Nathan? You've got the social science background, so it'd be interesting hearing your view on this.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the potential barriers is that there might be people that look at emerging technologies, not just AI, but also things like blockchain, and think that maybe it's not for me because I can't see role models in the industry that kind of look like me, or and this is a particular kind of maybe an issue around a pipeline of people who follow certain educational paths. Although I think it's a really good example, with what you're doing, is that you don't have to go and study computer science. There's no linear kind of path to, I want an AI-powered career. But I think there's probably some work to be done to kind of make sure that people understand that it is for everyone who wants to use it. And that is probably, it's communication, storytelling kind of work that needs to be done.
Great.
Sorry, there's one more thing I'd like to add to that. I think, really reinforce your point there, for every bit that my computer science degrees have helped me, I think in this latest revolution, they hinder in equal parts because I haven't got the diversity of thought.
Yeah.
I'll stick with you, Jeff. So next topic we want to cover is the whole AI job market. So what would you say are the most in-demand AI-related roles that you're seeing right now?
Right now, so in the things I'm seeing, and I think people's experience will differ because I work in IT consulting, is there's a lot of work being put into AI research around LLMs by the government. Things like the AI Safety Institute, who I believe are related to the DSIT. So there's actually a lot of demand for prompt engineers and conversation engineers and people working in AI safety at the governmental level. And of course, we're seeing a lot of people asking for things like, what is it, model ops, things like an extension of DevOps into model operations, and some people call them ML ops and model ops interchangeably. So that's what I'm personally seeing, but I'm sure people are seeing different things.
Yeah, all valid. Entrepreneurs. This is not my original thought. I'd love to take credit, but it isn't mine. I believe that everyone's going to be their own startup in the future. Everyone's going to plug in somewhere, be used to, have their startup plug in someone else's. I think there's going to be a marketplace of AI-powered solutions that's just going to talk to each other, negotiate with each other. And that is the future that I'm banking in. So I think there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs coming. I'm already seeing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, kind of building on what you said in terms of entrepreneurs, I totally agree. I think maybe to highlight some opportunities for people is that as these tools become increasingly available and the barriers to entry kind of are shrinking, which is a good thing in many ways, try and think about what is your distinctive advantage when it comes to your domain expertise and your life experience, your passions. So if you're thinking about switching from law or accounting to doing something in AI, well, there's definitely demand for industry-specific, domain-specific AI solutions, and often that's where the money is.
That's really insightful. Actually, let's stick with you, Nathan, in terms of what are the insights of how AI is transforming and augmenting roles within the workforce at the moment? Have you seen this change?
I guess I'll answer from the perspective of kind of what I'm doing at the moment in the games industry. I think that there are quite a few tools coming out that kind of speed up game development workflows. For example, generating assets like a 3D chair, for example. It's like, here's a prompt or here's a photo of a chair, give me a 3D model. And I think those kind of things can be quite disruptive, potentially in a good way and also potentially in a bad way. And I think that it's trying to find what is your unique advantage in that industry. And often if AI is being used to automate some of the more kind of menial or manual or boring tasks, like, for example, just to go on the game asset example, there might be a lot of background assets, like generate me 1,000 different versions of a tree. Maybe the game artist wouldn't actually want to kind of draw 1,000 different trees, but maybe they need to specialize in how do we make characters more unique. So thinking about kind of where what AI is going to excel at, and then what do I need to excel at with AI.
Great. Cien?
So I was a product manager. Who here are product managers or software developers or in the delivery space? Okay, amazing. So the whole of last year, when with ChatGPT, all of my user stories were written by ChatGPT. And I used to manage a team of 30 engineers. in a very big startup. And sometimes it took me a weekend to write some user stories, and my engineers were very, what's the right adjective here? It's very critical about the user stories. Acceptance criteria, definition of done. It has to have the right description. When ChatGPT came out, I was like, write a user story about this. Make sure that this is your framework. Give me what is it for, why we're doing it, user stories, definition of done, and acceptance criteria. Like, that was revolutionary for me. That was really got me to buy in. Because as a product manager, like, your life is full of user stories. And it is the worst part of that job, right? Writing user stories and then editing it for your software developers because they think it's shit or whatever. Sorry. But so, like tasks like that. And then when it started like understanding documents, I was just downloading API documentation. I was writing documentation myself. It was like these types of jobs that require knowledge and like repetitive things of writing on the same framework. If you're not doing that yet, you're missing out.
Jeff?
So I work in software delivery, so I very much echo what you just said, because we have a lot of product managers, and we actually did a set of blind experiments. And what we did was we got people to do the stuff manually, and then we got people to do it with AI, and then we got people to do it with AI, but having had more training on using the AI. And then now the timing's easy because you just record the time taken to do it. But then you also record the quality, and then we blind reviewed the outputs. And we found in all cases, every single thing jumped up in both the time taken reducing and the quality improving. And we're now implementing that all the way across where it's useful to do so, the software delivery lifecycle. And it's not just because it's quicker and it's high quality, because high quality quite often means you don't have to go. I don't know how many people are familiar with agile delivery. You don't have to go back around the loop when something fails after it's come out at the end of a sprint. So we're actually reducing the number of cycles, which leans into lean principles. But actually the biggest uptake we've seen in our organization has actually been the marketing department. And the marketing department now reckon they're twice as efficient. And that means they don't have to pay external agencies as much. And they're finding the quality of their stuff is getting up. We're getting published more. They don't use it necessarily to write all the material, but they use it to effectively as a writing partner. And we're getting more and more publications, getting a shorter cycle to actually going from an idea to something being in the media. And I would have never guessed this, right? Because they're not necessarily the most technical team, yet here they are. They're the absolute champions of AI, using more AI tools, I say, than the software engineers. They've actually got a wider breadth and deeper use and better use of those tools than the software engineers does, I was not expecting to see that, but I was very happy to see it.
All right, so we've got a final topic here. I know we're holding you guys between now and happy hour. So ethical considerations. So Jeff, let's stick with you because I know you're in this area. So what are the ethical considerations that professionals should be aware of when they're working with AI?
So I think there's quite a lot. But I think the number one, because I had somebody come to me recently and say, what we want to do is we want to transfer these very simple file types, comma-separated values, between two files, and like fixed format. Can we use an LLM for that? Why would you use an LLM for that? You are effectively melting the polar ice caps to do something you can do practically on a pocket calculator. So first of all is consider the use cases, and if it's an efficient use of the planet's resources. And that'd be my first ethical point, because it's one of the ones that's quite pressing just because of the fact that Google are now going nuclear, and that's really interesting and kind of cool, but also scary at the same time, because that amount of power is required to keep the lights on, literally.
I can talk about this all day. I think there's so many aspects of, like ethical AI that you've got scholars are interested in, and you've got, the people, the everyday people who should be interested in it but don't understand it, because who knows what ethics is? Like, it's all made up. I mean, we've made up this concept of what ethics is based on what we think is fair, but it's not being practiced right by people, so it's not being implemented well in the systems that we use. But I think the most important thing is equity. Same with what is happening in the world is equity and reduction of bias. And that's because people of color or whatever from minority groups will miss out, will be discriminated if these things aren't gonna be, and I hate to use the word regulated here because there's also pros and cons to actually regulating something that you don't understand. But the most important thing is how do we make sure that we have equity, that there's equity that people will be able to get from these systems evolving. Like how do we all maximize from it and how do we all benefit from it is the most important thing out of all the cool, fancy ethics subjects that I'm most interested in. But I think the most important thing is equity.
Yeah, I would say one thing I think that is important for anyone who's developing new AI applications or models is like think about what is what you're doing potentially high impact in terms of like the damage it could do, could it be repurposed, and also think about the value. So if something is low value in terms of what it's bringing to the world, but potentially could be very detrimental. So a good example is deepfakes, right? So the kind of consequences of deepfakes, which we're only now beginning to see, but were well predicted. Is that enough justification to kind of like push better and better models out there? That's a good question for all of us to consider, and that's what ethics is about: is having that discussion about what is acceptable as a society. So,
can I just add one thing also that as builders I believe should consider is understanding the impact again of the things that we build, but from a sustainability perspective. So if we're building something that is low impact, I wouldn't be fine-tuning my own model. I wouldn't be using that much compute. I'll probably come up with another way, still using AI, maybe using an aggregator platform like LaunchLemonade to build the solution. But I'm not going to use so much compute power if it's going to be a low impact or like something that doesn't need complex tech. I think that is one thing that everyone should be thinking of, especially if you have the capacity or the skill to fine-tune models, because it's expensive, not as in money-wise, but like from a Earth's perspective.
Yeah, that's great. So I've got one last question for you guys. So blue sky thinking, what would you like to see AI achieve?
I personally like to see AI used to help solve the environmental crises we're seeing. I think, along with healthcare, they feel like the two most pressing things, because really, first of all, if we don't have a planet, then there is no AI or anything else to be worth bothering about. But I believe that AI should be used to actually benefit and raise the human experience, not take away from it.
Ask me that question again.
So blue sky thinking, what would you like to see AI achieve?
So since the Industrial Revolution, humans have been measured up against how much they produce, how much money they make, and like our IQ levels. But then now with AI, being promised to be more smarter than us by next year by millions of levels, and producing more with robots, just being able to produce more, what will being human mean? And people talk about this, like this, some sort of existential crisis that the world will experience because of AI. My dream is that, my blue sky thinking is that people will actually reconsider what it means to be human. And I think it's going to be about our creativity and how we connect with other people. And I'm so excited for a world where I could be a poet and still earn a lot of money, or have better relationships and let the AI do work for me.
It's kind of like going back to when I started the session about how technology is best when it connects people together. Nathan?
Yeah, I would say probably go on the environmental side as well. But like specifically, it would be cool to see AI kind of help scientists to solve kind of very specific hard problems that we're really struggling with right now. So for example, like, as a silver bullet kind of solution, if if the AI can be used to solve really hard engineering challenges like nuclear fusion, for example, that would make it, that would give us a lot more confidence going forward in terms of energy sources. So yeah, like really hard problems, helping scientists to figure them out and make the world a better place.
Fantastic. So everyone give our panel a big round of applause. Nathan, Cien, and Jeff.